Well, hey, everybody, I'm back. We're getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest for this week a bit early. So here we go, episode 178. Check out my notes. Actually, I have them right here. Okay, here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 178 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. You can find me on the socials at Be Our Guest Mike. So if we're not connected, find me so we can connect over the Christmas holiday coming up here in just a few days. And speaking of that, I hope you are having a wonderful holiday Christmas season, that you got to see some lights, that you have been eating your definite allotment of Christmas cookies, which here around the Be Our Guest podcast studios, Mallory made some awesome sugar cookies with her friend Addison the other day, one of her cheerleader friends. And I've been eating way too many of those over the past 72 hours or so. Once they're gone, they need to go away. But then, of course, Paige is coming home here in just a couple of days, and then the big cookie baking really happens, and that's where my favorites are made here very soon. So I will be the cookie monster here shortly. Hopefully you are doing all your favorite things. You're going to the concerts at school. I do miss that, being a teacher. I miss being able to see my students perform their Christmas concert, singing up on the rooftop, click, 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 down through the chimney with old Saint Nick. And we used to have some great concerts at our school, Wedgwood Elementary School. And it was fun because I taught with Pam, next door. So my class would sing and her class would sing. We'd sing together. And so for the Christmas concerts, we'd sit next to each other, and Paige would be there with us because she went to the same school. So we'd watch her sing. And it was really a family affair. So I really did enjoy this time of year as far as being a teacher. And I do miss kind of that stuff. And I don't miss any of the teaching stuff and the discipline and all that stuff. But this is always one of the most exciting times of the year in a school, because there's an excitement, right? The kids are getting excited because, I mean, Santa right now up in the North Pole, he's finishing all the toys, right? And he's putting them in the sack and getting ready here in about 96 hours to make the big ride. It won't be long. And he'll be flying through the skies and landing up in Wisconsin and St. Louis and Colorado and New Hampshire and Virginia and Florida and all over the world. And it's going to be one heck of a night come Sunday night. So everybody better be tucked in and ready to go. But anyway, I hope you're having a great holiday season, and just enjoy it. I know there's a lot of last minute things that we get stressed out about. There's always one more gift to buy, and there's always, one more thing to wrap and one more thing to do, but just slow down, enjoy it. This is the greatest time of the year. And, maybe next time you're at the store, buy a trinket for somebody that you don't know. That I like seeing when somebody goes through McDonald's, do grab that egg McMuffin for the person behind you. You know what? They might not have anywhere to go back home to for Christmas this year. Maybe they're in the military. You don't know. Maybe they're, not going to have the opportunity to spend it with a loved one. They're going to be, going back to their base, what have you. We're pretty blessed to be able to do what we do. And speaking of that, I just want to thank you as we're getting close to the end of 2023. You guys here on Patreon support the Be Our Guest podcast. And I try to tell you every week how grateful I am, how thankful I am that you go the extra mile to support the Be Our Guest podcast. And it means the world to me. I love doing the shows. I try to never miss a podcast ever since 2008. I try to make every show something you can laugh with us, something you can maybe learn something here and there. I try to never be preachy. I try to make it fun and entertaining and a little bit educational. But more importantly, I try to, I want to bring you in as a pod. I think a good podcast brings the listener in as though you're kind of just sitting at a table with friends. And I hope that over the past year that we've been able to do that for you. If you've had a day where you were, down, or you were just kind of lonely, Maybe we were just somebody to keep you company. Maybe you just needed somebody to go with you on a run or while you were cutting the grass in the backyard or taking the dog for a walk. We appreciate that so much. But by you being a patron here on Patreon, I cannot thank you enough. If it's $5 a month means a ton to us. So thank you for your support. Hope you continue in 2024. But it does keep the lights on because all this video hosting stuff, we have over 2,500 shows in our archive at this point, and it's just going to keep growing, and it's great. I mean, I love this. So we'll keep giving 100% effort, and thank you for your support. All right, so what's going on around here? Like I said, Paige right now, her basketball team just landed this evening in West Palm Beach, Florida. They're in a Christmas tournament down there for a few days, so go UIC Flames. Hopefully they play well down there. And then she's flying back to Chicago after the tournament so she can get her car. And then she's going to drive down to St. Louis. From Chicago to St. Louis, it's about a 4.5-hour drive. If you drive like Paige or like me, it's pretty fast. It's a 5-hour drive for most people. But then she's going to be able to be home for just 3 days, which kind of stinks because when she was in college, she'd be home for like 3 weeks. But this time 3 days because she has to go back the day after Christmas because they have practice the day after Christmas. They're strict. So we'll enjoy the, 50, 60, 70 hours we have together. She'll, I'm sure, enjoy getting to see her dog, Riley. She misses her. She'll probably enjoy seeing Riley more than us. But we're super excited to have all four of us. I am to have all four of us under one roof again. Mallory, she'll be out of school here, I think, on Wednesday. So in 2 days. Pam, the same. Her last day is Wednesday. So we are getting ready to really just be home a lot here and be able to spend the holidays together. Of course, I'm getting ready for Marathon Weekend. I leave January 3rd for that. Then I get home for a couple of days and go to Disneyland for that weekend. Those are my two races for 2023 or 2024, getting those out of the way right off the bat. So the podcast, just so you know, they're going to be kind of different until we get settled in after the first couple of weeks of January. For Mike in the Midwest, those are going to be kind of hard to record on the road. But what I'm thinking about doing, and I think you guys might like this, I might either try to record them like just with voice memos on my phone or just get some ambient sounds from Disneyland or from Walt Disney World, sounds of the parks, and do something like that just for a couple of weeks to give you something different and special. But I'll see what I can come up with because, again, I don't want to miss any shows. I'm going to do everything I can for the big show. I got to make sure the Be Our Guest podcast is squared away first, and then I'm going to make sure I do something over here so that you guys get your fix too. But I appreciate y'all so much. So please be flexible as we get through all this. Because of the back-to-back race weekends and the holidays landing on a Monday, the days we record 2 shows every week, things are kind of a mess right now, but we'll make it happen. That's why I'm recording my 3rd show of the day today, and I'm recording a bunch tomorrow and Wednesday and this Thursday. That's why I don't have a voice right now, so I apologize for the way I sound. All right, so that's what's going on around here. Let's hit the feedback from last week's show. Last week, we talked about being home for Christmas and how lucky some people are to actually get to go home, even as an adult, back to that physical house where you grew up, right? You might get to go back to your childhood bedroom. Even as an adult that's 50 years old, your parents might still live in that same house where you grew up. So you can go back to the physical space of your kitchen and sit at your kitchen table from your childhood or go into your basement. I don't have that because my parents were divorced in college, and I talked about it last week. So I don't get to go back. My grandparents have all passed away. So I can't go back to any of those places other than in my mind, kind of like the song, right? I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams. I mean, I have pictures, a few pictures here and there. They're kind of scattered, but it's mostly upstairs, and they're all amazing memories. They're all amazing memories. It warms my heart when I think of what my living room looked like as a kid on Christmas morning. It was amazing. What my grandma's living room looked like on Christmas Eve with my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins. We were all in there. It was jam-packed with all the presents and my grandpa playing Larry Gatlin Brothers Christmas music and Kenny Rogers Christmas music, and it was just like we're all playing with our new toys. It's all still in my head, and I just want to have that forever. So it warms my heart, even though I can't go back there. The house, I can drive past the house, but we just don't own it anymore. But if you get to do that, you're pretty lucky. So let's hit the feedback from last week. Carrie Good, thank you so much for the feedback. Says, Mike, great show reflecting on Christmas past. Like you, Christmas Eve was very special at my grandparents' house. I would absolutely pay to have one more time together with everyone there. That time always holds a special place in my heart, and I have a few Christmas decorations from my grandma, ceramic Christmas tree and nativity scene that she made that I put up every year and think of them. How cool is that? I'm the same. I have a few Christmas decorations from my grandparents' house. And the one thing when my grandma passed away, God, I love my grandma. I have the cookie tin that we always went to. Everybody, my dad, my uncle, my cousins. As soon as you walked in my grandma's house, she always had homemade chocolate chip cookies. That's what my grandma was known for. As soon as anybody walked in the house, you always went to the cupboard and you pulled out this Schnucks, which is a local grocery store, um, metal cookie tin, and it's all beat up and scratched. But when my grandma passed, everybody was kind of deciding what they wanted. Some people were looking for stuff that was worth something. I said, please, the only thing I really want is that cookie tin. That means the world to me because that was something that we all wanted to, that was where we always went. Nobody thought about the cookie tin, and I have it. So that's kind of like that, Carrie. That's super cool. And I do have my grandpa's train. I talked about that. It doesn't run, but I have it in boxes, and that's my retirement thing. I'm gonna get that fixed up because it was my dad and my uncle's gift when they were like 7 or 8, and my dad turned 70 this year. So you can imagine how old that is. And it used to smoke, and I remember because my grandpa, even when I was a kid, he had it running under his tree. It had smoke, and it had little guys that would come out of a door when it went by and like wave a flag. It was super cool, but somehow it got beat up. Jody, my good friend out in Cincinnati, says, what a great show. I have so many wonderful memories of Christmas as a kid. I was lucky enough to have 20 cousins on my mom's side and 4 on my dad's side. Whew. That was the best part of Christmas, getting to play with my cousins. I sometimes feel bad because my kids don't have that. Tim is an only child, and my sister lives in North Carolina, so they don't get that cousin craziness on Christmas. I would love to take them back to get a glimpse of a huge family gathering and what it was like. I'm so blessed we have my parents nearby and get to go to my same church I grew up in. Hope those are the memories my kids will cherish. That is awesome. Isn't that it when you're a parent, though? You just wonder, what are your kids going to, because like I know what my memories are and how special they are, but like what's Mallory's memories? What are Paige's memories? I want them to have something as special in their heart as I have in my heart. And I think they will. I know they will. Everybody has them, but they're different, right? Everybody's memories are different. I mean, I had going to my grandparents, I only had 2 cousins and my sister, but man, it was special. It was awesome. I saw my cousins a couple times a year from down in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. But, I didn't have any brothers, and we had a good time when they would come up. They were from Poplar Bluff's like the country. And so they'd come up with their accents and we'd have a good time. They'd talk about all the stuff they did down there, and we got our presents. We'd play with our stuff. We had such a good time. Yeah, it was awesome. Trisha up in Wisconsin says, although I cherish my childhood Christmas memories, I love the new ones we're making now. We are lucky enough to have pretty early visits by Santa, so we open gifts Christmas Eve. Santa must know we travel on Christmas Day, which is hosted by my in-laws. We eat a lot and open presents. I plan group games based on a theme, Peanuts, Christmas, Grinch, etc. I'm the only one who knows what the games are and play the role of the MC. There are prizes at the end too. We end our night with a luminary walk in the forest behind the house and stop for a brief fireworks display put on by my husband. It's a pretty great day. Trisha, I love this. Now, I would like to say I like that red stuff, the cherry stuff that I put in my Coke. Some of that with the fireworks and the luminaries, that'd be perfect. But I need to come up to Wisconsin on Christmas Day because this sounds like fun. Games, and you're MCing, and we're going to go look at luminaries and go out because I bet you guys probably get snow. We never get snow down here hardly ever anymore. That sounds like fun. And your daughter's going to have these memories forever of something special like that. And you get to have Christmas Eve. And so you get to do all the other stuff early. I love it. Merry Christmas to you guys. That's so awesome. Dennis says, first, congratulations to Mallory and her team on taking second in the state. It may not have been the outcome they were hoping for, but that is a huge accomplishment. Thank you, Dennis. We're super proud of the team. Unfortunately, I can't go to my childhood home for the holidays. My parents have moved twice since then. However, They still have plenty of Christmas ornaments and decorations from the time, so I still get that nostalgia kick each year. In fact, my mom managed a craft mall for years, and she purchased so many decorations that the house was always flooded with them. Now that they have downsized their home, they have left some in the box. They leave some in the box. Otherwise, it looks like Christmas exploded all over their house. Dennis, that is awesome. And I think that's, again, it's the Christmas tree debate, right? But I think a good Christmas tree, one, it should be artificial so you can use it over and over and over so that at 30 years later, it's that same Christmas tree that you were putting up when the kids were little and they're now in college, because it's, it grows over time. It has that same, it's the same one. And the ornaments, right? Because that is something, I have an ornament on our tree up, and I got to put this one on the official tree upstairs, the pretty one that Pam does. I made it when I was 3 years old in Saturday school. This was before, this was like pre-kindergarten or something, and it was made out of Play-Doh, and it's a little yellow Christmas tree with some ornaments. I don't think I made it in preschool. I think I made it in my grandma's house. And so this thing, I'm 50, so this thing is 47 years old. And it used to hang on my grandparents' tree at their house. And when they passed away, I went through their ornaments and I took that and I brought it home. So that thing is hung at their house, 1020 Harrison in Florissant. And then when they passed, now it hangs in my house. And that, I think a good Christmas tree is all about nostalgia. And so you got to have little hints of nostalgia. Like I have an ornament for my first Dopey in 2016. My first marathon was 2015. So it's all those things. When you hang them on there, it just reminds you of certain points of your life. It's almost like this is your life every time you put up the tree. I love it. Thanks, Dennis. And finally, Andrea says, I lived in 4 homes before getting married and moving out of my parents' home. They moved once since then, so I can't go back. My husband's father still lives in the home he grew up in. I'm happy to have such great memories. As for the great light debate, I'm definitely partial to colored lights on the tree. I have 3 out of the 6 sets of multicolored lights with the little flower caps on them from when I worked at Kmart before I got married 30 years ago. Those are the holy grail of lights. I want some of those with the little flower caps. Those are the best. I've seen like pictures on Instagram of like who remembers these from their childhood. And I'm like, oh, we had those when I was a kid. And I love those things. Andrea, you are rocking with those. Those are so cool. Let's see, back to her. Oh my God, that just got me so excited. She says, my parents had similar lights and I always like them. My husband also likes multicolored lights, so we don't have to compromise. Our main tree is real and has an assortment of ornaments from my childhood, my grandparents, family, photo ornaments, peanuts, and of course, Disney. My husband has an artificial tree in the computer room filled with Star Wars ornaments. I also have my grandma's ceramic tree and just love looking at it, looking at it lit up. I'm nostalgic and loved old-fashioned decor at Christmas. Merry Christmas to you and your family. I hope to see you at Marathon Weekend. Merry Christmas, Andrea. And that makes me so happy. I have 2 ceramic trees in the house. And the reason I have them is because my grandma had one. I don't have hers. And the reason I probably don't have hers, I'm not positive, because we had 3 grandsons. She had 3 grandsons. And I'm sure at some point we probably broke it, because I just remember we almost broke it a bunch of times, because it wasn't in the more formal of the rooms in her house. It was in the room with the buck stove. And that's where we always played. And so I don't know why she had the ceramic tree in that room, because that was a dumb idea, right? But it was in there. It was obviously ceramic, like glass. And I know we bumped into it a few times because we'd throw like a little Nerf. We had Nerf footballs. We had all kinds of stuff. And I know we hit it a few times. So I wonder if we ever broke it. I don't remember breaking, but I don't have hers. Regardless, I did see one a few years ago, a green one, bought it. And then I saw a white one, bought it because it reminds me of my grandma's. And I just love ceramic trees. I think they're the best. So thank you for your feedback. You guys, that is awesome. You just made me so happy with this feedback. So if you have feedback about this show or any other show, Mike, that's my email. It's patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. While you're sitting on the couch over the Christmas break, that's your homework. Patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. And you do have homework because this is the topic for today. And I want you to come up with a list. Pull out your notes on your phone, and you got to ponder this, because I did this over about 3 different days, and I was trying to come up with a top 10 list and I never got to 10. And then I said, that's okay. because I can add to this over time. And here's what I was thinking about. And you're going to say I'm totally dumb for this list, but I feel like this is a safe place. You guys, you guys know me. We've been together since 2008 talking about this stuff. So I feel like it's a safe place. Here's my rules. I was trying to come up with a list of 10 people that have passed away that I would love to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes just to talk to. Now, this isn't 10 or 15, this isn't 10 people that I necessarily admire for sure. Some of these people I would admire, and I'll tell you why. But some of these people I have totally different beliefs in than they do. But some of these people I would love to have 10 to 15 minutes just to pick their brain and just to see what they were really like in person. So let's go through my list real quick. And I don't think I have 10. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8. And I'm trying to get to 10, but I couldn't get to 10. So here we go. First one is Gavin MacLeod, or Captain Steubing from Love Boat. Now, the reason I picked him is because from all accounts, from everything I've heard about him, he was a very kind man. I never did watch Mary Tyler Moore, but I've seen almost every episode of Love Boat, and I love the character. I'd actually probably rather meet Captain Steubing than Gavin MacLeod, because he seemed like, again, these are character traits I wish that I could develop more to be a better person. He's very fatherly. He's also very understanding in his character. He's a very good listener, but he's also very, in his character, if you watch, because, it's kind of a crazy show, but if you dive down deep into Love Boat, maybe I'll do a podcast about this. A lot of times it's also about acceptance and tolerance and justice, because there's shows about racism and stuff like that with Isaac and how groups didn't accept him and he would not put up with that on his ship. But he seemed like he was like everybody's dad and everybody's advocate, but everybody's friend at the same time. But he also ran a firm ship because he was the captain, and what he said had to go. So I don't know if I'd like to sit down with Gavin MacLeod, but I love the role of Captain Steubing. I'd love to have 10 to 15 minutes with him just to kind of see, like, what are the parallels between Gavin MacLeod and Captain Steubing? How did he feel about that role? Now, my rules are these have to be people that obviously they don't have to be super famous, but I never had an opportunity to meet, and they had to be, they're all passed away. You have to be passed away. I never had a chance to meet. And so that's basically it. Number 2, another kind of wild one, Bob Barker. Now, I've been having this thing on Pluto TV. I've been watching the Price is Right channel. It's called the Barker era. So it's all the Price is Rights from like 1983 or 1984, which was like right in my wheelhouse because I was like 10 or 11. And I would watch that over the summer when I was home from school or when I was sick from school. And the thing is, here's what I noticed about Bob Barker, because I've done a little research about him too. Obviously, he was a huge advocate for animals. We know that. And I appreciate that. He used his platform for good, which I really appreciate. But here's the other thing. If you watch these, and also back in the day, you couldn't binge these Price is Right episodes, where you can at this point on Pluto TV. It just shows them 24 hours a day, back to back to back. There's a channel on Pluto TV. The thing was, this is what it left me, is somebody who talks into a microphone and wants to do something to kind of entertain everybody, to make this 30 minutes worth your time. Every interaction he had with the contestant on the show, for the most part, not everyone, but most, he made that person's day. I think every person just about that he interacted with on The Price is Right years later probably said, I got to have an interaction with Bob Barker and it was positive. He would ask them where they're from. He would joke with them. He would comment on their clothes, their hairstyle, how they came on down during the game. He would have some funny comment about how they priced out the game. But the thing was, he never had a lot of time with a contestant. The games went quick. The pace of the show was very quick. But he seemed like just a very genuinely nice guy. Very, very small interactions. But I bet you every person that had that very small interaction felt very big in the big picture. I bet you everybody that left that show that got to get up on stage or got to meet Bob Barker thought that was a pretty special thing. So for the scope of, he did over 5,000 episodes, and think about how many people he had that interaction with. That's pretty cool that he got to be a part, that an important part of over 5,000 people's lives or stories. So Bob Barker. Number 3, Lou Gehrig. Talk about somebody who took a negative and didn't complain. And I couldn't do this, one of the most phenomenal ball players of all time. And also somebody who went to work every day and gave every effort he could until he physically absolutely couldn't. The pride of the Yankees. Lou Gehrig, we know ALS is now named, it's Lou Gehrig's disease. He died young, but he was just an outstanding ball player for the New York Yankees, and just super strong, super muscular, but played the game right. Just an amazing athlete, but an unknown disease cut him short in his prime. And I think many of us, almost all of us, I know I couldn't do what he did, would be extremely bitter and maybe shy away from the public, or I don't know what I would do. But I'd be upset, because I know how I try to stay in physical shape as long as I can. That's why I do as much running and walking as I can. I'm trying to, stave off the inevitable. But what did he do? He considered himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth, even knowing that he was probably going to die shortly in a very, very painful death. But he knew that he'd been blessed in his life. He got to do things that most people dreamed about. And he was a positive role model in the darkest times of his life. And that made him a legend, really, for decades to come. And it really taught Americans what courage looks like. And I would love to be able to, just sit down with him for 10 or 15 minutes and say, where did you get that inner strength? Because I would like to have that, because I think we all need a little Lou Gehrig inner strength in us, because that was amazing. Number 4 on my list is Walt Disney, obviously, for many reasons. Somebody who was never satisfied with the status quo. Somebody who always saw the future. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here, right? This is kind of a softball. Somebody who always wanted to make the world a little bit better, who always wanted to entertain, and maybe not always with himself, but he wanted to get the best out of others. And he liked to see other people succeed. With the Be Our Guest podcast, I love seeing, excuse me, all of us succeed. I like seeing Ricky and Pam and Scott and our listeners that call in on Sunday nights, and our guests that come on the shows on Mondays. I like hearing their stories. I like hearing everybody have fun with our show, because it's not my show, it's our show. He innovated, but what he did changed the world. Think about it. I mean, a little mouse. I have the mouse right here. I'm dead staring at it. His sticker on my microphone. He dreamed, because I sat under the tree in Marceline, Missouri, that he apparently dreamed up Mickey Mouse, the dreaming tree, which is no longer there on that farm in mid Missouri. And he changed the world. Absolutely. And he entertained the world, and he brought around technologies that make me want to go back time and time again. And what a world it would be without the vision of Walt Disney. Next, and here's the controversial one. I wasn't going to put on my list, but I did. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is the one I don't agree with a lot of his thinking. For one thing, he was an atheist, from everything I've read, and I'm absolutely the opposite of an atheist. I'm a believer. But the thing is, and he did treat people the wrong way, and I do not agree with that either. I mean, there's no reason to ever treat people the wrong way. The golden rule is what I was brought up on. You treat others like you want to be treated. But he also came up with products that absolutely revolutionized the world. And I don't know if I'd want to sit down and talk to him, or more observe him from up close to see, like, why was he like that? What drove him to be like that? Because he's obviously driven. Think about, in a world without iPhones. I mean, because iPhones drove the Samsung phones and all the handheld devices. excuse me, in many ways, the world would be better without all these phones. I agree with that. But also, I can right now, if I wanted to, talk to a friend in Japan face to face. I mean, it's like we're living in the future. So that's kind of a controversial one. What would I do with that? I don't know. But I've read his biography by Walter Isaacson, and it's super intriguing. But I know we wouldn't get along. We would not get along at all. But I am intrigued by how that one person in the garage and Steve Wozniak with him, they there's no denying they changed the world. But for the better, yeah. But interesting. This next one you've never heard of. Jason Gross. Jason was a podcaster that I listened to for a few years. And he did a podcast called, well, he did a few podcasts, but they all were retro themed podcasts about the 80s and memories of the 80s. It's kind of like Mike in the Midwest. And I was going down to do my walk one morning, and it was either walk or run because I alternate. And I was getting on the treadmill, and it was a walk morning actually, because I only look at Twitter when I walk because I can't when I'm running. I fall off the treadmill. And I saw a tweet that said from his co-host that he had tragically passed away the night before. And he's younger than me. He was only 44 years old. He lived in Alabama. And it hit me so hard because he had 3 kids, a wife, and all he did was tell stories like I do here of his childhood growing up in Plainfield, Pennsylvania. And he told so many great stories of his he went to a private high school, played basketball, played baseball. He worked at a radio station in college, moved to Alabama for work. But he had so many stories about, making sticker books as a kid and, all the stuff that I did, and he brought back so many great memories. And my regret there is that I never really told him how much I appreciated his podcasts. So if I could have 10 or 15 minutes, I would love to sit down with Jason and say, thank you for spending the hours and hours that you did putting together your podcast, because they entertained me and they brought back so many of my great memories because of his work. So I didn't have that opportunity, and I feel bad about that. But he was a great podcaster and just a regular guy. Probably never heard of him, but he went by RD80s on Twitter, at RD80s, and just a really neat guy. 2 more. Another person I would have liked to met was astronaut Alan Bean. Now you might say, why not Neil Armstrong? Or, well, I can't say Buzz. He's still alive. But Alan Bean went up to the moon on Apollo 12, not Apollo 11, but the second lunar landing. But he was more of a soft-spoken astronaut, and he was a supportive astronaut. He got to walk on the moon, but he didn't go out first. He went out second. He was also an artist. Once he got back from the moon, he did paintings of his experiences. And he, even up to the day he died, which was only about 5 years ago, he lived down in Texas. He painted his experiences and he talked about it, but he was very soft-spoken, and he was never the rock star astronaut. And I would have liked to have sat down with him and said, you have left the earth and walked on the moon. How can you stay so humble? Like, what's the lesson in that? You are one of very few human beings to do something as extraordinary, to take a journey that is so fantastic, that takes so much courage. Yet you're more humble than a person who bowls a 200 game at the local bowling alley. Tell me about that. Why is that? Where do you get that? How does that work in your soul? So I would have loved to just heard some of his stories for 10 or 15 minutes, because he just seemed like a cool guy. Astronaut Alan Bean. My last one is also an astronaut. My heroes have always been astronauts, I've always said. And it's Krista McAuliffe. So if you're of my generation, she was going to be the first teacher in space. 1986, she was on Challenger, the space shuttle that exploded on January 28th, 1986. Many of us were watching that launch in school. I was in 5th grade, and we were watching 73 seconds after liftoff. The SRBs, the solid rocket boosters, had some ice on them, and one of the seals on one of the O-rings had a failure, caused the heat to escape and hit the external tank, and the stack blew. And I would just like to have asked Krista, like, what was it like? Because she was a civilian teacher who was chosen from over 14,000 applicants to be an astronaut. So she was just a regular teacher like I was. But then she got to go on the world's most exciting adventure, to go from being a teacher. She was a social studies teacher from Concord, New Hampshire. But then all of a sudden she was thrust into the public and, the spotlight and everything, which I think I would enjoy kind of. But also, you're going to get to go to space. I think a lot of us have that dream. What would it be like to go to space? She got a flight suit. She got to go in the T-38. She got to do all the trainings. How exciting is that for somebody that's an ordinary teacher? I'd have loved to heard some of her stories. And here's the thing. I got to be the personal escort for her mother twice, 2 summers down at Space Camp. When I taught at Space Camp for educators, her mom's name was Grace Corrigan. And my job when I worked at Space Camp, and I volunteered for this because it was awesome. I picked her. She spoke to our teachers. Each international space camp was our last space camp each summer. And she would come down and talk to the teachers of the year, because we had all the teachers of the year in at the very end of the summer. And so she would fly in, talk to our teachers of the year, sign some books, and go home. So I would pick her up at Huntsville International Airport and drive her over to the Rocket Center, over to Space Camp. And, she'd do her thing, and I'd escort her around, get her whatever she needed. And then after the thing, I'd take her back to the airport in the little SUV. And so I get to talk to her, right? And so I told her, I'm like, we made small talk, and I said, I'll be honest. I said, one of the reasons I became a teacher was because of your daughter. And, I said, there's a lot of people in my generation that are there's a lot of teachers in classrooms that's true of. I guarantee you that. And she's like, I can't, that's amazing. Because I don't believe that's why you became a teacher. I said, it has so much to do with it, because I was so excited to see her science lessons. We were going to do science lessons that she taught from space. And I thought that was so cool. And Grace was, she lost her daughter. We all saw the footage on TV with her husband. But she was just such a kind woman, and she kept thanking me the whole time. She's like, I just want you to know, thank you for teaching those kids back in Missouri, she would say, because she knew I was from Missouri. She's like, it is so nice that you go back to Missouri and teach kids. Krista would love that you are teaching, and that you think about her. And I'm thinking, this is Krista McAuliffe's mom thanking me for teaching. I'm trying to thank her for the journey she's been on. She's endured tragedy, and instead of locking herself away after her daughter died in this horrific way, she goes out and evangelizes education. She travels all the way from New Hampshire to the deep South, to Huntsville, Alabama, to talk to more teachers. She was an amazing woman, and I would have loved to talk to her daughter, Krista, and just say, what was it like to be a regular teacher who all of a sudden became a rock star astronaut? How cool was that? So that was my list. Didn't get to 10, got to 8. But if you had to come up with an exercise like this, pop out Google Keep, that's what I use, or Apple Notes, or whatever you're going to use. Come up with a list over the next week and then share it with me. I'd love to hear what your list is. You can put a few comments if you want, but I'd love to hear your list. That'd be super interesting to me. So who's 10 or 15, 5, 10 people that you'd love to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes with, passed away, they got to be gone, and also somebody that's not like a friend or relative or somebody in your life? Where would they fall? All right, jumping out of here. Hope you have a great Merry Christmas, because we won't talk until after Christmas. Hope Santa leaves you everything under the tree that you're hoping for. And don't forget to leave out the milk and cookies. That is essential. I appreciate y'all. Hope you have the best one ever. We'll see you soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you after Christmas.